Detroit Den 313. We are back. Stephen Will talking at Detroit Lions football. Before we get started, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. Do not forget the bell icon so you don't miss any of our new content. Steve, talk to him.
Dare I say this might be one of our best episodes in a long time.
Think so?
Dare I say it. So today, what we're going to do is it's not a mock draft. It's a list. We're gonna rank my top 5 wide receivers, Will's top 5 receivers. We're going to go in order from 5 to 1. Now, what we're going to do also, disclaimer, we're going to keep it realistic to who the Detroit Lions can actually get. So Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably out of the picture. Rome Odunze is out of, like, those guys, we understand. They're not falling to 29. So we're going to keep this real. So, William, receiver, kind of a position of need for the Detroit Lions. Not an overly pressing issue in our opinion, but another playmaker on offense never hurts, right?
Yeah, it's true.
So, number 5, who you got?
Well, I'll say this first things first. I didn't know that we were doing 5 that could go to the Lions. I was going to do just top 5, but because I've done my homework and I love 20 bazillion of these guys, I can go off of the cuff here. So my 5th one off of the board here for me would be Javon Baker, man. And I know that that's probably going to ruffle some feathers that I got him in my top 5, but Javon Baker is somebody that I think that his ceiling is going to be just through the roof. Central Florida guy, big receiver. He can play that X. I love his game. Not taking anything away from, like I said, there's 20, no joke, there's 20 receivers that I love in this draft. But
very, very deep.
5th on my list, just coming off of the cuff here, it would be definitely Javon Baker.
Like him that much, huh?
I do.
That's a guy we really haven't talked about too much. Hasn't been in any of our mock drafts. We've done a lot of solo episodes about some prospects, and Javon Baker's just not one that we've done yet. So we might have to dive into that. But I like it as well. I'm not gonna hate on it. This is a very, very, very deep wide receiver class. Like a lot of people are wanting a receiver in the first round. Guys, we can get stud talent in round 2, maybe round 3.
Yeah.
Like this is probably a receiver draft, in my opinion. Because after the quarterbacks go, the top 5, I think it's all receivers for the rest of the draft. Just my personal opinion. But at 5 for me, this is a tough list for me. This was a tough because, like I said, there's so many guys you could go with. But I went with Xavier Worthy. 4.21 at the combine. We've done mock drafts, and you had him in one of yours, I think, in round 1. So this is someone we're both pretty high on. So to put him at number 5 says that I got some studs. 1 through 4. So I really like Xavier Worthy. I think he's like a hybrid of Jameson Williams. Just get him the ball, let him run. My only concern is a lot of people compare him to John Ross. I don't see that type of comparison. I think he's way more of a well-rounded wide receiver as John Ross. So he did a lot at Texas. He was very productive, but Texas has a very pass-friendly offensive type of scheme. So I worry about how that translates a little bit to the NFL. But at number 5, I think he's quite the steal.
What about a comp for him being Deshaun Jackson?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I'd like him to be Deshaun Jackson, Hall of Famer if I'm not mistaken. Isn't Deshaun Jackson HOF?
I don't know that he's a Hall of Famer. I don't know.
I could be wrong.
I don't even know if he's up yet. He hasn't been gone that long.
His best days were 20 years ago. I can't imagine. He was very electric even as a punt returner. So I don't know. And we've talked about these new kickoff rules, and Xavier Worthy was someone, I'm not going to draft him in round 1 just for these new kickoff rules, but it is a nice little wrinkle that you could certainly add if that's the route you want to go.
Yeah, I don't even look at Xavier Worthy as just a receiver, man. He's kind of, not to steal one of Brad Holmes' words, but I just look at him as a weapon, man. He's a guy that I can throw into that slot. He's a guy that I can do some reverses with. He's a guy that I can throw some screen passes, some short routes that he can take to the house, and I can threaten you vertical. I just look at him as a guy, man, that can just be a guy that can be electric for your offense that you can do a bunch of stuff with. So I look at him as a weapon, not just a receiver.
Yeah, give him the ball. Yeah, 4.21 seconds. He's 40 yards down the field. It's proven. Yep. Who you got at number 4?
Number 4 for me would be a guy that kind of reminds me of Amon-Ra St. Brown in some ways, man. But even like Amon, and you're gonna know where I'm going. Amon-Ra St. Brown, maybe like a Anquan Bolden, maybe like a Deebo Samuel type. You know what I mean? Malachi Corley, man. He's built like a running back, but he's a receiver. They call him the Yak King, coming out of Western Kentucky. He's a guy that shows up whether they're playing against subpar talent or when they were going up against Ohio State. He was a guy who got it done. He could show that he can play on the big stage. He didn't disappear, even with teams pretty much game planning for Malachi Corley. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They wasn't game planning for nobody else. They're just trying to stop him. He was still doing his thing. I just think he's a stud, man. He's number 4 on my list.
I'm kind of disappointed that you took the words right out of my mouth, because that Ohio State game, he was a problem for the Buckeyes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Western Kentucky. They're not exactly loaded with talent, but once they figured out how to slow him down and how to game plan for him, the game really turned for the Buckeyes. And I'm not going to say Western Kentucky was ever in it, but you could tell like Malachi Corley was an issue for the Buckeyes, who put a lot of good defensive backs in the NFL the last 10 years. So that's a good DB school. And Malachi Corley had his numbers. He did pretty well in that game, considering, you know, it was a huge step up in competition for Western Kentucky.
No doubt. No doubt.
Hilltoppers, stand up.
Roger Martin, stand up and play this season.
Yeah, stand up and put pads on, please. Like, stand up and be a body on the field. Number 4 for me. This was a tough one because this guy was my gem. This guy was my wide receiver gem for the Lions in round 2, Ja'Lynn Polk out of Washington. Mm-hmm. I like this kid. I think he's very, very selfless. He's a solid teammate. I think he's going to come into a position with the Detroit Lions, like I've said, that he's familiar with at Washington, where he doesn't have to be the guy. He just has to be a guy. He blocks, he can catch, he catches with his hands. I know that's something you like. Yeah. He does it all. He's very selfless. He's okay with being number 2. He was on a loaded Washington Huskies team. Bigger receiver, man. I think, like I said, he was my gem for the Lions. So in round 2, if we get that edge in round 1, Ja'Lynn Polk round 2, I'm very, very happy.
Yeah, Ja'Lynn Polk's a stud, man. We did a show on him, guys. Go back and watch that if you want to know the particulars on him. But he's just a guy that's going to do everything that you need a receiver to do on the football field, and then some. Only thing that he's missing to me is that vertical speed, but not everybody has to be a burner to get it done in the NFL.
Yeah, we got Jameson Williams if you want absolute elite speed. Like, you could throw Ja'Lynn Polk in the slot with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams all on one side. I mean, we got weapons. Let's get this offense really, really on fire and just unstoppable. I think Ja'Lynn Polk, I think all these guys on my list can do that, but Ja'Lynn Polk is my draft gem. I'm going to be hard to get off of him, but I had to put him at number 4 because I got some studs 1 through 3 were coming up. So who you got at number 3?
Roma Duce, man. Roma Duce, number 3, man. I don't even think that you need I think you know who he is. You know what he's about. Just a physical specimen, just a guy that plays the game like I like it to be played. He's just a football player, man. When I think about all of the things from the receiver position, if I want a guy that just is a football player that's going to have a little bit of a nasty to his game, even though he plays one of the sexy, the prima donna positions that some might say, he's a guy that's going to get it done, man. I like his game. It just scares me that he might end up in Chicago.
Do you think he's realistic for the Lions, though?
Yeah, so Roma Duce for me, man, is a guy that I think that if Neighbors goes and people think that Neighbors is better, and if Harrison goes, immediately, right? And then it could be easy for somebody to run into a guy that is also on my list, Xavier Liggett, not to give stuff away, but there's guys that you can fall in love with over him. So I think, yeah, he's realistic.
I think if he starts to fall, that could be a spot where the Lions trade up. So,
because I think that's what happened with J-Mo, man. I think J-Mo started to slide a little bit. Brad said, "Whoa, hold on a second, I'm gonna go get him." So I think, as we said before, and I'm not saying that it's super probable, but what is probable is someone has to slide. Mm-hmm. Someone has to slide. So all it takes is somebody to be in love with Brian Thomas, somebody to be in love with Xavier Liggett, and next thing you know, Roma Duce is still on the board.
Yeah, I like it. And I think you're right about J-Mo, because if I'm not mistaken in that draft, I think Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave went before. We had a little run on receivers in that draft, and Brad said, "Oh, here they go. So I better get on the phone and go get my guy." Yeah. I think Jameson Williams was the number 1 receiver in that class before he got hurt. Yep. He was doing it all at Alabama. Deep routes, in routes, reverses. Like, we got to unleash him this year. Yep. But I like it. I think that's a trade-up scenario, though, for the Lions. I don't think he falls all the way to 29.
It is. It's not at 29, but I think that it's strikeable.
If Roma Dunze falls to 29, I'm gonna have to make some deals with God to start going to church really, like, more often.
He won't be at 29.
Yeah. 3 for me. I got a Donnie Mitchell. Again, another Texas guy, highly productive. I know they had a powerful offense, especially at receiver and quarterback. They were loaded, but I think he was the number one guy at Texas. I remember watching the playoff game against Washington, and he was out there. I could tell he was playing hard. Like even when they were down big, like he was probably the one guy on offense that was like, "Hey, we can get back in this." Like he was putting it all out there. And at the end of the game, he had a chance to, I can't remember the score, but he had a chance to, I think, tie it up. And what's that quarterback's name from Ewers? Quinn Ewers threw a little fade ball to him. And Adonai Mitchell floated in the air what seemed like for 8 seconds, but he just mistimed his jump. Like he gets up there, he tries to high point the ball. That play he didn't, but he does do high pointing of the football very well. I think that play just in particular, he just mistimed his jump.
Yeah.
How do you feel about A Mitchell?
I love him, man, and not to give too much away, man, but I feel like we might as well speak to it. He's the next one. He's the next one on my list. So just to continue on, for me, he's the number 2 guy on my list, man, and a lot of it is about risk reward. So Adonai Mitchell is a guy that just scores touchdowns, man. He makes big plays. He scores touchdowns, and when you talk about that, you're talking about winning. You're putting points up. You're talking about winning football games. So, before you even have to ask and to spare the suspense, that's number 2 for me, Adonai Mitchell, just piggybacking. So
yeah, I get it. So we'll just keep diving into it.
Yeah.
What do I got? I got him at 6'2", 205 and ran a 4.3. That is a big, physical, tall, fast receiver.
Yeah, almost 6'3".
Yeah. I don't have his exact number. I just got 6'2". I don't know.
He's a little over 6'2". That's what I'm saying. Like he's almost 6'3", because I think they had him listed at 6'4". But
yeah, ESPN probably had him listed at like 6'6". That's what they do. I'm not sure. Like we need to get them under like criminal investigation for some of the heights and weights they put out, because it's just
how they do.
Close.
They're using those program numbers.
Yeah, Steve Perkins, 6'8", starting center, Detroit Pistons. How do you think Adonai Mitchell? I think all 3 of these guys I got on my list would solve our problems that we have for the offense, especially in the second half. Like I don't know what happens at halftime. We just come out and it seems like we just have no gas in the tank. Like we've just hit a wall. Like our offense kind of sputters out for 2 or 3 drives. I think these next 3 guys we talk about, including Adonai Mitchell, just kind of help give Goff another weapon, give Ben Johnson another player to get creative with. Our third quarter was probably one of the worst in the leagues. Do you think that someone like Adonai Mitchell would help solve that?
He 100% helps solve it, man. He's another guy that can win one-on-one matchups. That's what you're looking for. Ultimately, you're looking for guys that can win in space. You're looking for guys that can beat their man. You're looking for guys that require you to answer for them in the game plan. And I don't know that you're going to have to answer for Donovan Peoples-Jones in the game plan. Now, is he a serviceable guy? He is. I'm not taking that away from him, but is he a guy that's going to put up a bunch of touchdowns and run a 4.3 and have extreme explosiveness? I don't think that's what he is either. So I just think he's another enhancement. He's another guy that you got to account for in an offense where we got a bunch of them. We got Jahmyr Gibbs, we got David Montgomery, we got Sam Laporta, we got Jameson Williams. We got a lot of weapons already. Just so to sprinkle another one in there, combined with the best offensive line in the business, probably. Yeah, thoughts and prayers, as you say.
Good night. So Mitchell was your number 2, you said?
Yes.
All right, so I'll go my number 2, Georgia's Ladd McConkey. He's not the most overpowering, like physical presence on the football field, but I think he's, in my opinion, one of the best route runners in this class. He's very, very smooth.
Yeah.
In what the Detroit Lions offense is it's not flashy. It's not Jared Goff throwing for 500 yards, 400 yards, 450 yards. Like he's not putting up those kind of numbers. Our offense is just kind of designed to, like I've said, nickel and dime their way down the field. If someone gets loose and a big play happens, great. But we don't take a lot of deep shots. We don't take a lot of, jump balls 50 yards down the field. We just kind of hit some slants, some outs, some comebacks. The run game's pretty strong. I think Ladd McConkey would be one of the best fits. I called him like an Amon-Ra St. Brown and a Hunter Renfrow, like love child. If those two met and had a baby, you would have Ladd McConkey. And I think he's just an absolute stud.
I think Ladd is one of those dudes, man, where you got to swish him in your mouth a little bit. You got to like wine, man. He's like fine wine. You know what I mean? Like it's a matter of taste, man. Some
Acquired
people
taste.
some people like the whites, some people like the reds, man. It's like, well, what type of wine you like, man? You like it dry? Like, what do you like? And when we talk about Jared Goff, he likes to get to his drop, get the ball out on time, nice and accurate. I think that's what Ladd is going to bring to the table. Is he going to blow your mind? Is he going to be taking the roof off of this thing? Is he going to be a guy that's going to be super exciting all the time? No, I don't think so. But is he a guy that's going to push the needle? Is he the guy that's going to get you first downs? Is he a guy that's probably going to fit right into being a blue collar guy that just comes in and gets to the business? I think so. I definitely think that he's a guy that would help this team out, and I think that he's a guy that would fit very well with Jared Goff. He's a little bit high on your list for me, but
I just look at his route running. Like, he's not overly tall, he's not overly fast, but his route running is second to none in this draft, I think.
Hey, he put up a 4.3. I'm not gonna say that man ain't fast.
That's
I'm not
true.
I'm not gonna say that man ain't fast, but what I love about him is his feet, man. I told you, for me, it was Ocho Cinco. I had him in the conversation with Ocho Cinco just because of his feet, man. Chad Johnson had some amazing feet, man. His feet were just so fast and explosive, man. He could get in and out of his breaks. He could throttle down with the best of them in his prime. I see that out of Ladd. I like that in his game, man. I think that he's definitely going to be a productive receiver. But it's like I said, man, it's a matter of taste, man. There's 20 receivers in this thing that I feel like that I could get on here and talk about, and I could easily hear arguments about guys that we haven't talked about yet today. So
Yeah, I can already see the comments coming of Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, Brian Thomas Jr. Like, guys, this is a deep wide receiver class.
Yeah.
Deep. To narrow this down to 5 was pretty tough. Like, you're gonna have to leave some names off the list, obviously. But Will, I'm 99.9% sure I know who your number 1 is, and it probably rhymes with Xavier Smiget.
Yeah, it does. And you're a mind reader, obviously.
Yeah, that's weird because my number 1 is the same. So that's the only one we really matched up with on it.
That's crazy. So Xavier Legette, man, he do I think that he's the best today? I don't think that he's the best today. Do I think that there's a potential there that we could look at this draft and say, man, there was 5, 6 receivers that got taken ahead of Xavier Legette? What were we thinking? What were those teams thinking? He's a dog. I've heard Steve Smith talk about him and say that Steve Smith believes that he is better than DK Metcalf. I'm not super high on DK Metcalf, but I do think that he is a problem oftentimes in this NFL, and he's a quality receiver, better than most. He might not be the best, but he's better than most, you know. And to say that he's better, that's saying something, man. Huge guy. You're not gonna press this guy. He's coming in at 230. The guy.
What's his height? I don't have his height written down.
I think that he actually is just over 6'1". I think they had him listed as 6'3", but at Combine they had him just over 6'1". So almost 6'2", 230 pounds. Maybe some people are saying that it was 230 for the Combine. He really runs around 240. Just a physical freak, man. Explosive. Started to come on strong last season, put up some great numbers when he finally got a quarterback that was worth talking about in Spencer Rattler. I think that you get this guy in the right situation. You get him with a good receivers coach like Antoine Randall, and he's going to be a guy that really develops in something over the next 2 seasons that to be real special.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add to Xavier Legette because we both had the same number 1. 4.3, 940 at his size. That is pretty impressive. I think, like I said, we need someone, either this is a Ben Johnson issue or an offensive issue, adding another piece to solve these second half offensive struggles. Like, all 5 of these guys, I think, do that. I think Xavier Legette is probably the best for where we're picking at 29. If he's there, it's going to be tough. It's going to really depend on who's there defensive end wise for me. But Xavier Legette is a problem for a long time in this league. I really see it. And I think he'd be also, like Ladd McConkey, a perfect fit for the Lions. Can block, big, physical, fast, just someone you got to account for on the field. Yeah. I really like him.
Yeah, I just look at this, man, and all the people that we named, and it just goes to show, man, there's so many guys that I'm still just like thinking about, man, that are still available or still, I mean, they're all available, but just in my mind that we didn't hit on. It's a deep receiver class. That's why I don't even really see us necessarily taking a receiver at pick 29, unless it's just a dude that we absolutely love. To me, I think truly, if one of those three guys at the top of this thing, and to me, when I'm really talking about the top of this thing, I'm talking about Harrison, Neighbors, and Odunze. If one of those three slip because you like the first two and now you're trading up for quarterbacks and now the edge rushers and the linemen are going, one of those guys slip into the 12, 13, 14, 15 range, maybe you see us trade up to go get in any of those three. After that, for me, just like you said, it's Xavier Liggett. Not because he's never necessarily the best today, because like I said, you could end up looking at this thing, man, and saying, man, I can't believe Xavier Liggett was still available at pick 29. That's crazy. He almost slipped out the first round, just like we will be saying about Brian Branch.
Yeah, he could be the steal of the draft.
Yeah.
I've seen some people having him mocked to us at 61. I personally would be absolutely blown away if Xavier Liggett is still available at pick 61. I don't see that happening.
I don't. The furthest that I see Xavier slipping to, man, is like in the 30s, man. In the 30s. After that, I don't think he lasts to pick 40. You know.
Yeah, I don't think he
35,
makes it past
36.
Kansas City at 32. They just lost their receiver, who's probably going to be getting a little spank on the butt for his little Corvette situation on the highway like a week ago. So they're kind of in some need for some receiver help. So I don't see him slipping out of the first round.
Yeah, I still think they might get a Donnie Mitchell though.
At 29, guys, we've given you kind of like 8 wide receivers. It could be options. Me and Will had a little bit of a different list, but we're locked in on Xavier Liggett number 1. We didn't even like talk about this. We're just, hey, let's talk about this today. Come up with your list. I'll come up with mine. I think we only had Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Liggett as both in our top 5. So we kind of had a different list, but locked onto the number 1. Guys, in the comments, leave your top 5 receivers. Be realistic. I can't see Marvin Harrison Jr. On anyone's list at 29. Let's just try to keep it real. Leave some comments. Hit that like button. If you're new here, stick around, subscribe. We'll be back later with some more content.
Peace.